Welcome friends to Farm Fresh Designs 59. Today's video are just a few more mushroom projects and some fall projects. So let's get started. My first project is a terracotta mushroom that I had out in the yard that my son bought me. First I spray painted it white. Then I decided to use Rust-Oleum Serenity Blue. Well, then I didn't like that either. So then I decided to paint it with Dixie Belle Barn Red. Well, I didn't like that either. And so the final coat of paint is Rust-Oleum Chiffon Cream. So this mushroom has a lot of different color paints on it. So this is a transfer that is made by Redesign with Prima, and it's called Fairy Flowers. And I used it in a video recently for like a little wall plaque. Now this little fairy looks like she's swinging on a rope made out of flowers. And so when you are transferring onto a curved surface, it can be a little difficult. And especially with this little rope of flowers, because it kind of is off to the side and it's not part of the actual fairy body, then as I'm pulling that plastic up, I like to trim those pieces off just because it's easier to hold on to. And so once you get it transferred on, you use that plastic to burnish it, which really just means all you're doing is using that plastic and rubbing over it really gently, and it kind of picks up any edges that might be sticking up. Now, in this transfer set, there's a lot of butterflies and a lot of flowers, and so I just put some different transfers on that match that particular fairy. Now I'm going to actually be making some resin molds to put on this mushroom. And resin is that mold medium, and it has two different parts. They are equal parts. So you put in part A, and when you get ready to pour part B in it, you need to be ready to stir it. And it starts off kind of cloudy, and when it turns clear, then you pour it into the molds, and it sets up really fast. And so when you start ready to pour it, you want to have some extra molds off to the side so you don't waste any. Now, watch what I'm doing right now. This is a butterfly mold, and I want it to look like it's flying kind of off of the mushroom. So right now, when you first pull that resin out of the mold, it's pretty bendable. But if you wait too long, then it's really hard to make it bend again because it's so stiff, because this is a permanent mold medium. And these are just some extra little pieces that I'll use on projects in the future. So this actually is a little butterfly, and the wings are folded down. So I didn't try to make that one look like it was flying. But I'm pressing it down while it's just coming out of the mold to kind of curve it to that surface. And then the part that I didn't show was this is like a little fairy door. And this one, actually when I poured it, it was a little bit thinner than I wanted it to be, but it turned out really good because it made it really easy to mold down to the base of that mushroom. And I'm painting it with Waverly's Truffle. Now all the little butterflies, it took me a while to get it done, and you're not going to see me because I took a lot of time just right there holding on to those little butterflies and pressing them together so that resin would set up like that. So I wanted to paint them to match the fairy that was in the transfer. And so what I ended up doing was I got Dixie Belle Apricot, and I took some Voodoo Gel Stain and I added that to it because I wanted to kind of take away the bright color of apricot and make it more muted. And I'm just painting all the different butterflies, and there were some extra little stars that I poured into those little pink molds. And I'll link all this stuff in the description box below. So I go ahead and paint all of those that apricot color. And then I kind of save the rest of that paint because if I need to go back and put a second coat on, because I mixed it and there was no rhyme or reason to, how much I put of each. I just kind of poured the apricot in, and then I poured some voodoo gel stain in until I was happy with it. Now, because I have been pressing those molds down while they were soft, and even just for a little bit, then I can put them on with Titebond glue. And I'm sorry I'm out of focus. And so I put the little fairy door down at the bottom, and then I'm just adding the different molds. Now, one thing I did want to tell you is because the wings on these butterflies are sticking up and you can see the back of them, what I did was after I got them on, then I painted some of the back of it. And then even though it touched that chiffon cream, I just kind of went back over it, touched that up. Because I wasn't really sure how much I needed to paint on the back. And amazingly, when I put these down with Titebond glue, I didn't have any problem with them sticking. And I really was kind of wondering if it was going to work or not. And it worked beautifully. So I was really happy with the result. And this is like a little mushroom that was part of that pink mold that you saw. Now what I'm doing first is I'm using white wax over all of the different molds. And then I go back later and use just a little bit of the grunge gray just to kind of bring out some more of those details. And I just go over all the different molds with that wax. Because I didn't want the colors to just kind of stand out. And then when I was using the grunge gray, it brought out all the little extra details in the wings of the butterflies. And I'm just using like a little soft towel to wipe down the excess. And I even put some gray on that little door. But here's the finished project. I just love it. I just think it's the sweetest thing. Now, I could have made the molds with hot glue, but I wasn't sure how well they would last long term because they can be a little bit flexible. And I wanted it to be more firm like the resin. So that was why I used the resin on this particular one. So what do you think? I love it. Okay, now this is a little mushroom that I actually bought at Hobby Lobby this spring. Or it was actually once they put the spring items on sale for the 40% off. And it had a red top to it, and I can't remember what the base of it was painted. But I went back with Rust-Oleum chiffon cream and painted the whole thing. And this particular transfer is a smaller fairy that's within that set. And if I forget to tell you, once I get it painted, I put a clear sealer on it before I put the transfer on it. And so I'm just burnishing that, or I go ahead and pressing that down, and then I burnish it on. And then I find some little flowers and butterflies that go along with this particular little color of fairy. And then this little door that I'm putting on at the bottom is another piece of that pink mold. And I also make this with resin. And I'm just using that down at the bottom. Now, I could have painted these, gone on and painted them before I put them on there, but I wasn't really sure what colors I was going to be using. So I knew that I would just go back with the detail brush. And that little piece that I'm putting on right now with Titebond glue, that's kind of like some little steps in front of the door. And then I put a couple little mushrooms that come in that pink mold down at the bottom. And then if you'll notice over to the right, there is some little pieces, and those are actually little flowers made out of resin. And I think there's a couple little stars. And now that bigger little fairy door that's sitting off to the side, I really wasn't sure if I was going to use that one or not, but it seemed like it was just a little bit too big for this particular mushroom, so I'll use that later on. And I'm just putting them on with tight bond glue. Now, because I wanted to go ahead and start putting on those molds up at the top, what you'll see in just a minute is that I put some blue painter's tape. I laid it over that little door down at the bottom and the mushrooms, and that just kind of held it on really well until that tight bond sets up, so I could go ahead and start putting the molds on up at the top. And I'm just picking out some different ones that I want to use up at the top. And that's where, after it sets up, then I pull it off. And so on the little flowers up at the top, I actually use a Dixie Belle color called Mason-Dixon Gray. And I love the color because it's like a muted purple. And when you look at the bottle, it doesn't really look like it's a purple, but once you paint it, it's just that real light color, and I really like it a lot. And so I painted the flowers with that, and then I went back with like a little yellow in the center on those little flowers. Now on this one in particular, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to put like voodoo gel stain on it, so I kind of left it as it is. Because it's got so much detail that if I wasn't happy with the voodoo gel stain, then I was going to have to go back and paint it. So tell me what you think. Now make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and we would love for you to be part of our family. Okay, so the last project made with this fairy transfer set is a little terracotta pot that I thrifted recently. And I spray painted it with the Rust-Oleum Serenity Blue paint. And what I will do is I will go back later and paint the inside, but I will use the paint that comes in a can, because sometimes when I spray paint something and you're spray painting on the inside of like a little can, all the fumes kind of go everywhere and it just kind of makes a mess. And this transfer, it really is large, but I wanted it to be large. I wanted it to cover a lot of this little pot. And this is kind of difficult to get on. I don't know why I put myself in these situations where the transfers are hard to go on, but I do, and I haven't learned my lesson yet. And so whenever you're trying to put a transfer on to a rounded surface, if you want to kind of cut into that transfer just a little bit, and it helps it to lay down a little bit more. And then I just kind of rub my finger up underneath that little rim to press it down. And then on this one, I actually, I put a couple coats of sealer on it after I put the transfer. And these are just some extra little pieces to go along with it. There was a little word that said love, and this is a butterfly. And then one more little transfer that goes along with it are some little flowers that I'll put up at the top. And then I paint the inside of it. And this is not actually something that I will use for a live plant, because I'll be painting the inside, but also because this little pot in particular doesn't have like a little drain hole down in the bottom of it. So it's going to be more decorative. And this one, when I bought it, I knew that it was a more decorative pot. And so here's the final result. And if you're been with me for very long, you know that I keep my 2 granddaughters during the week, and we're all about fairies and princesses and hair bows and all those little girly things. So this is just something that we can put on in the bathroom or even on their dresser, and keep all their little hair bows. So my next 2 projects are made with some scrap wood that I had left over from my last video. And these are just some little fall design transfers that are made by Timeless Designs. And the name of the transfer set is called Hello Fall. And I really like this company. You get these transfers off of Amazon. And I believe the company is a mother and daughter. And these transfers are such good quality and they transfer on really well. And so I will make sure to link those in the description box below. But this is just a sort of a larger transfer, and I could add like a little hanger onto it or add like a little bow. But this is going to be just a little shelf sitter. And because there's like a little blanket on the inside of that truck, what I do after I get this transferred on and I burnish it was that I have like a little napkin that is a smaller napkin that's that black check, and I open it up all the way, and then I cut out from the center of it, and then I decoupage part of that little napkin up at the top and the bottom to finish it off. And this is one more little piece of the scrap wood, and I paint it with Serenity Blue. And this is a transfer of a little wheelbarrow that's got some flowers in it. And once I get all this put on, then I actually go back on this particular one, and I use Tim Holtz Distress ink to kind of go around the edges and make it look a little bit more rustic. And these are just some little words that came in that transfer set that I put up at the top. So what do you think? Are you somebody that likes to have some like little signs sitting around to celebrate the different holidays or the different seasons? Now, I did not go back and put distressing ink on the first sign, because if I had put it on, I would have only probably put it on the side and not up at the top. And I wasn't sure if that was going to look right. Now, something else I could do with that taller one is, sometimes you can take a piece of twine and string some little wood beads on it and hang it. But I wanted to kind of leave it as is, because I don't know what, the people are going to use it for when they buy it. And sometimes they don't always want to hang it up. Now, my last project, these are some molds made with hot glue. And I made them up ahead of time. And this particular sunflower mold is by Redesign with Prima, and it's a sunflower mold. And what I really like about this particular mold is that there's different little sections of the petals, and you make those up, and then you kind of, when you attach them to your project, then it kind of, you layer on top of each other, and I like it because it makes it stand up a little bit more. And then this is the centerpiece, and then you're going to layer that on top of that. So it gives it a real pretty 3D effect. And so the different petals, I'm using Rust-Oleum chiffon cream, and because it's made with hot glue, takes a couple coats of paint to cover it really well, because they come out and they're pretty clear at that point, and you need a couple coats on it. And then the center is painted with Dixie Belle French linen. Now, because it's made out of hot glue, if I used hot glue to attach it, it would fall off, because this is a metal wall pocket that I used in a previous video, and this is the other side. But I'm using Titebond glue to put these on, because on this particular side, there's a little raised up emblem, and I wanted to cover that up. Now, because this is sort of a bigger mold, actually what I do is I just want to make sure that those set up really well. So I just set a kind of paint on top of it, and I let it rest on there for a little bit to set it up. And I promise it doesn't like smush it down or a little bit. And then once those get dry and I'm happy with it, then I go back and I use Titebond glue to put the centerpiece on. And when I look at it now, I probably could go back and I could put some white wax on that centerpiece, or even put some dark wax on it. And before I take it to my booth this week, I may decide to do that. And then you'll notice sometimes you can use popsicle sticks to put on glue, but I use these little silicone sticks that I get at Hobby Lobby. But I don't like to put it on with my finger. I just don't like the way that feels. And I just think it turned out really pretty. And I like sunflowers in the fall. But not everybody likes bright colors. And so this is more of a neutral tone that you can use all fall. And you can, put just different things in it. And you don't necessarily have to stick with the bright sunflower colors. And then what I did was I dry brushed on some of that French linen onto the petals to tie it all together. And this is something that, you can hang up on the wall, or this wall pocket is actually large enough to hang on a front door. But what do you think? Well, friends, we are at the end of the video. So here's what I want today. I want you to leave me a comment below and tell me what was your favorite project. This one's my favorite. The big mushroom is my favorite. And then tell me something. Are you somebody that likes to decorate with mushrooms? And then one last thing, make sure that you tell me, what would you do to finish off that little mushroom? Would you put some gel stain on it, or would you leave it as is? But for right now, I'm just going to kind of leave it because I haven't decided what I want to do with it exactly. And here's my little signs that I'll be taking to my booth this week. But I want to thank you for all of your support, and I can't wait for next week because I've got some special projects that I'll be showing you. So make sure to hit the thumbs up button and like this video and subscribe to our channel and become part of our family if you haven't already done that. Thank you so much. Have a good week.